All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nature Journal show. We're going to try to go live here on Instagram as well. So this might take a second. Gotta turn the volume off there. All right, great. Let's dive right into it. So, as you can see, there's a lot of things I have been doing to prepare for this trip and to practice drawing jaguars. And one of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how sculpture can actually help prepare you for drawing jaguars. But there's some other things I've been doing in preparation that you might not really expect to get ready for this trip. And some of those are psychological. So, as you can see here, I am manifesting some of what I'm hoping to draw when I'm in the Pantanal in Brazil in a couple weeks. So let's get right into it. That's enough of my leggings. Let's check out the sculpture project that I've been doing. So as you can see, the focus here is on quantity, and I'm keeping track of my progress. So these three were done on the first day. I'm writing here with a Sharpie what date they were done on so that I can see improvement, hopefully. And that is one of the goals that can be really helpful with any training program, is to focus on quantity and take a little bit of the mystique away from the subject matter that you're focusing on. And then if you can see your own improvement over time, that can be really motivating as well. So I have some cut out photos here that I've been using as a resource, and I'll talk about some of my other resources here later. But the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm a little bit behind. I was trying to do 2 of these heads every single day, and the last ones that I did were on the 27th, and today is the 30th. So right now with all of you, I'm going to bust out a new thing of this Sculpey clay. This is super Sculpey, and I am going to show you how doing a little bit of sculpture can actually help prepare you for drawing. Then we will do some drawings later, and I'll show you how I'm preparing to sketch jaguars live in the field, which I think is going to be extremely challenging, and I'm going to be with all photographers, so that's going to be very intimidating. So everything is set up for a very challenging sketching situation, but here's that Sculpey that I'm going to be using. That's what I recommend. It was recommended to me by Fernando Gomez Baptista, who is an illustrator for National Geographic, and he often does sculptures before he does his illustrations. You can actually see I have one of his illustrations on the wall right here. So this is an infographic done by Fernando, and I can't remember, I think he might have built sculptures of some of these animals before doing the drawings of them. So we're going to dive in now with a little bit of the sculpture. Hi Cindy, hi Jean, hi Christine, and thanks for joining in on the live, and also for those who watch this as a recorded version. So one of the things that is really beneficial about starting with sculpture is that you can understand the three-dimensionality and the planes. So planes is in Planes. So the faces of felines have some things about them that are really challenging to draw, and understanding the three-dimensionality, I realized, was one of my main weaknesses. So I decided to create some models, and what I realized is that by creating the models, it was actually very fun, and it was helping me understand a lot more about the morphology of the face. And whether you use these for drawing from later or not, just going through the process of making a bunch of these is definitely a good way to help you understand the three-dimensionality of something. Oh, Sandra is here too, and wow, I've got to say, this is kind of crazy, but she is also going to be on the same trip as me, and good job pointing out that these are actually as much as I would like them to be jaguar, these are probably more similar to leopard print. And there is a difference, and we can talk about that in a minute. There's also a lot of major differences in what their body shape looks like. And I think I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes, and my internet is really bad because I'm in an underdeveloped country right now where the internet is bad and there's a lot of biting insects. You can guess what country I'm in. Okay. Oh, James is here too. Hi, James. I think I got them on Amazon. Um, I don't know if I would recommend them yet. I have to test them for a little bit longer, see how long they last before I recommend them. I'm also working on a couple armatures here. You can see this is the aluminum foil Jaguar right here. And this one is this type of Sculpey. I actually got this at a store where they sell used art supplies. This Sculpey stains my hands really badly, so I have to be a little bit careful about getting this on my hands before getting it on paper. But this, both of these are starting with a wire armature and then aluminum foil, and that helps you save on clay. Sculpey is just a brand name for a type of modeling clay. So modeling clay is clay that stays soft even until it stays soft until you bake it, basically. Okay, so let's start with I've got to catch up on making these heads here. Wow, these mosquitoes are really biting me. I hope I don't get any diseases while I'm in this crazy country, this crazy underdeveloped dictatorial country with tropical diseases and no health care, and the internet's not good either. But pretty soon I'll be in Brazil, which has universal health care and the internet's really good. So plasticine clay, I think that might be a generic name for these. So according to the instructions, it contains ingredients that may stain. As you can see, I've spread out this plastic here to keep it from staining, and I have things for cleaning my hands as well. I also have a lot of aluminum foil, so what I'm going to do to save on clay, because I was a little bit profligate with my first ones, is I'm going to rip some aluminum foil and create little balls and then make them around that. Okay, so just making a couple balls of aluminum foil here. This also helps supposedly when you bake it. If you end up baking it, you don't have to bake it. I mean, part of the benefit of modeling clay is you can just keep reusing it over and over again for things like this. And you can get a lot of practice and learn a lot that way. Okay, so I got a couple of those balls. This is the brand new package. This stuff is not super cheap, but it is the industry standard. This is the firm version, kind of like tofu. It comes in different firmness versions. I think the nutritional content and digestibility is similar to tofu as well. Ow, where is this mosquito? I might have to take a break at some point here and try to find this mosquito and kill it. So because it's very warm out right now, this stuff is very pliable, even though it's the firm version. But I'm still going to try to be careful not to lose a bunch of these little pieces. So I think it's really interesting for someone that usually works in 2 dimensions. I usually am drawing or painting on flat surfaces, and it's really interesting to do a little bit of sculpture. I think it is really good for the brain to kind of have that variation. And so if you haven't done anything 3-dimensional before or haven't worked with clay since you were a kid or something, I highly recommend it. It definitely uses a different part of your brain. And I also think just this manual aspect of doing something with your hands like this is really good for your brain and probably also good for your hands. You definitely use both of your hands more than you do in drawing and painting, where most of us are just using our dominant hand all the time. So that's one thing. But I also just think, using your fingers and kind of squeezing stuff, it's definitely more physical than drawing or painting, which are usually, unless you're, one of those like Jackson Pollock type people, usually painting and drawing are less physical than sculpture. So I'm going to make a couple just basic balls and knead them a little bit so I can get the all these little chunks. I don't want to lose these little chunks and have pieces of clay all over the place, creating a mess. It's definitely messier than drawing or painting, so you might need time to get used to that part. And I should point out that I am doing a special, if you look in the description, the written description below this video, I'm doing a special limited edition publication based on the drawings that I do in the field when I'm in Brazil in a couple weeks. In the Pantanal, drawing these Jaguars in real life. So if you want a copy of that publication, it's going to be called Drawn to Jaguars. And I'm going to offer it in a couple different versions, but mostly and first off, it's going to be for Patreon members. If you sign up for an annual membership, you can get a copy of the journal with all the illustrations that I do and some essays and notes and descriptions of the wildlife and the scenery and everything, sort of an immersive description. So just imagine one of those 19th century naturalist descriptions, sort of like that, without the racism and the sexism and the ego that some of those individuals had, but more description and better illustrations as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just the, what I found is that if I start with 2 spheres, I often get a better shape, but because I'm using this aluminum foil to waste less clay, I'm going to start just with 1. And let's see how fast I can make these heads. And then afterwards, I'm going to do some drawing exercises. And I can show you some of the drawings that I have already. And I can also show you some of the books that I'm reading and the resources that I'm using. Uh-oh, my epidemiologist is in the chat sharing things. Let's see if anyone's commenting on Instagram. Oh, I don't know if Eric Losh is still here, but Eric Losh is leading a bird sketching trip in Colombia. So Eric Losh was might not be there right now anymore, but was there for a bit on the Instagram live. And feel free to, if you have a link to that, post that on the Instagram. Eric Losh is an amazing, unless I'm mistaken, yeah, I'm pretty sure Eric Losh is the right person I'm thinking of. An amazing field sketcher, and I have a lot of respect for people who are able to do sketching in the actual field. And from what I've seen on his Instagram, he does do work in the actual field and is leading a trip in Colombia, which looks amazing. Obviously that's competition for the trips that I lead, but I have a lot of respect when I see like people that are doing legit trips. Like I would definitely sign up for that trip. I feel very honored that he joined in the live, at least for a little bit there on Instagram. Let me hide this. I don't want to think about Chikungunya virus or whatever. All right, so since I am going for quantity, not quality, my main thing is just like, okay, check the box. Did I do 2 sculptures, 2 jaguar heads today? If I did 2 jaguar heads today, I'm happy. So I kind of am fudging this one a little bit because I mess up the proportions. But what I found before was that if I rolled, I think starting with that one there, I started rolling 2 balls for the head and 1 ball for the sort of muzzle, and that was helping me with the proportions, which are very important and are going to, just having that sort of gestalt understanding in my brain as I'm sketching quickly in the field is going to be very helpful. You can also get a lot more fine-grained with this and really focus on the way the light is hitting them. Like you can see right now, this would be a really great practice for focusing on like where the lights and darks are on the planes of the face. And that's what artists did in the Renaissance for a really long time, is they would use, and people do it today in ateliers and stuff like that, is they do draw from sculptures, and you can control the light on the sculpture and really get a good idea. So what I'm noticing right now is the proportions still aren't quite right with this one. I have way too much muzzle and not enough head. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of head to that before I start getting more into the details. So one of the things about the way the human brain works is that the conscious part of your brain doesn't really have that much processing power compared to the unconscious part of your brain. But the conscious part of your brain is the part that, in theory, in some theories at least, can direct the rest of your processing power. So for example, you can say, all right, I'm going to pay attention to jaguar heads a lot for like 5 weeks. And if that part of your brain focuses you on jaguar heads for 5 weeks, the unconscious part of your brain, where the real processing power is, the massive amounts of processing power are, if you're able to focus that part of your brain on jaguars for 5 weeks, it will develop an understanding of the jaguar proportions and jaguar anatomy that will benefit you later. And even if you're not consciously aware of it, just the fact that you've been focusing your attention on it for so long, your brain will start to get a lot more fluent in that subject matter. And that is kind of the study strategy that I'm going for here, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think I've got the proportions pretty close. So I'm going to start getting more into the details. And one of the really important things that you can see on a lot of these is the back part of the head, like the actual cranium. It sort of has these two lobes almost, or it's sort of divided in two. And a lot of that has to do with the muscles of the head. So you can see in this photo here, this is from the San Diego Zoo, you can see that there's actually a crease in the middle of the head, and that's probably these muscles that are involved in biting. And of all the large felines that are alive today, jaguars supposedly have some of the most pressure in their bite of any of them. So they bite through crocodilian skulls. So you can see right there's a line in the middle as well. So I am going to think about that as I am forming this part of the head. And I might be at the stage where I even just put in a little bit with this tool, a little bit of a line down the middle, and that gives me some symmetry to think about and sort of a guide line as well. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start pushing in where the transition is to the eyes, and this also thinking about is it the profile? Yes, the profile of the jaguar from this side. So I'm going to push those in a little bit flat in that space. Further back on the cranium, there is less of that line down the middle that starts to go away, and you just sort of have, I can't remember the term for that part of the skull. It's not the occipital because that's further back, but you start to have this part of the skull that doesn't show that line down the middle. Okay, I think the muzzle is sticking out a little bit too far still, but I feel pretty close. So I'm going to start going for some more details here because I don't want to spend too much time on this one. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a huge jump, and I'm going to sort of put in where I think the eyes are. And so a really big and important thing, and this is one of the things I learned from one of the resources that I'm using to study, is that the size of the eye relative to the size of the head is what tells you whether it's a big cat or a small cat. So a domestic cat or a baby jaguar is going to have small eyes relative to the size, I'm sorry, big eyes relative to the size of its head. The more adult the jaguar is, or like a big cat compared to a domestic cat, is going to have small eyes and a big head, if that makes sense. So in this photo here, this one actually, this is a big cat, obviously, because it's a jaguar, but it has fairly large eyes, so it makes it look a little bit more juvenile. The bigger the head is relative to the eyes, the bigger and the more adult the jaguar looks. So in this drawing that I did here, you can see the eyes are pretty small relative to the size of the head, and it just gives it a more of a serious look and more of a big cat look. This applies to all mammals, and this is that thing that they do with, to make an animal more cute, you basically make the eyes bigger and the facial features bigger compared relative to the size of the head. And that's the pattern for most mammals, and that's sort of like ingrained into the human brain, is like, oh, it's cute, it has big eyes. Okay, so now that I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to see if I can outline this shape right here, which is this sort of soft tissue that is around the eyes. And this is sort of a landmark in a way. It doesn't always show up in the actual anatomy of the animals, but like here you can see, for example, there is a shape right here above the eye, and that's really important. So I'm going to try to sculpt that in here really quickly, and it also gives me a sort of a landmark to locate other facial features and start creating that symmetry. So it's almost like there's these sort of puffy, almost like puffy eyelids a little bit. And this extends below as well. And I'm just going to kind of mark it slightly on here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these sort of tear marks. So if you look, there's these dark marks. This is really stands out. These dark marks, sort of where you would think tears would go, and these connect right into this big shape of the sort of cheek slash lip. I'm going to call this the cheek slash lip, and this I'm going to call the cheek. That's where a lot of the biting muscles are. This is more, I think a lot of this is more just soft tissue and lips, basically. But I'm going to call it the cheek slash lip because I think some people think of that as the cheek. But so we've got this, basically there should be a line coming out here somewhere from where the tears are, and I'm going to do that part first. I might change my camera setting here in a second so we can get more zoomed in. That one came out too far. And I'm just going to bring this down around that lip cheek. Now I'm going to try to get this central part here so I get some symmetry. And for this, I'm going to change my camera angle. So we're going to zoom in a little bit here. Bear with me. All right. So another really important shape is this. Look at this shape right here. This is super important. And even from slightly different angles, like I'm probably mostly going to try to draw the faces from a 3/4 angle. So in the 3/4 angle, you can really see that there's this big flat area where the nose and sort of the sinuses are. And so I'm going to try to get that in here, and I'm going to try to flatten it. because it's pretty flat. And then it comes up to the brow and comes down to the nose. Now I'm going to try to put in the nose. So first I'll put this line. This line barely shows up, but it'll help me get a straight line there. And then another really important thing is how long is this line right here? And you'll notice this line is not very long before it turns into a Y. This is basically like a Y underneath the nose. This is something you see with a lot of mammals, but you'll see, like, for example, where I did it here, I made it probably too long. So I'm going to split it off there. Turn it into the Y and make it come all the way down and meet that curve that comes all the way around the lip cheeks. I'm going to call those the lip cheeks. They're basically lips, but... And then these are important because they're pretty prominent in Jaguars. They are three-dimensional. So right now I'm going to do a little bit of modeling of that by pushing in this crack here. You have to be careful because this part, it can turn into a total smile, and you don't really want it to turn into like a human type smile. And I'll show you in a second how some of the ways to prevent that. So one of the ways to prevent that is to create some 3-dimension here with that lower jaw and sort of flatten this part out. We can also remember that this lower jaw doesn't stick out to the sides as much as those lip cheeks. So we got to take that back a little bit. See how this is way too puffy over here? We don't need that. I'm actually going to cut a little bit of material off there. And then the next part that's really important, and you can't see it from the face-on view, but I'm going to come over here to the side, and this smile doesn't keep going up that line. I made that line to show the three-dimensionality of the lip cheek, but that line is not where the mouth is. That line is just for the lip cheek. See how this is basically like a ball? There's a ball there, or a hemisphere. There's a hemisphere there, and there's a hemisphere there. And that line is helpful to show the hemisphere, but that's not where the mouth goes. The mouth will actually have this like deep spot here, and they have this crazy flexible lip tissue, and then it actually goes down. And they have all this black lip tissue, and this is the same with a lot of cats. Actually, they have this weird double lip thing, and it creates this thing that kind of turns from a smile into a frown, and there's sort of like a deep spot there. See how that looks? And if you look at this picture, you can kind of get the idea. And look at how this one, unfortunately, or just to add to the complexity of drawing this subject matter, there's this dark marking that goes into the fur, which makes this even more confusing. But basically right here, you have black lip tissue. The tissue without any fur on it is actually black. And it sort of goes up here and comes back down. There's like a deep spot there. The canines are probably protected somewhere like right in there, and there's carnassials in here, and this is this very tough lip tissue, but it's sort of exaggerated in Jaguars by this black marking that goes into the fur. But for our sculpture, what we're going to do is we're just going to try to push that in, and you can see on some of my previous sculptures how I've tried to show that with varying degrees of success. And it sort of goes from a smile into a frown. If that makes sense. Hopefully I'm not losing the order here because I want to maintain the order of these so that I know that I'm getting better. Because look at my first one. My first one is really bad. Look at how bad that is. It almost looks like a gorilla the way the head is. These are the ones I did on the first day. So you can see these are pretty bad. This one looks like a mountain lion. This is on the second day. So definitely some things to learn there, like, oh wow, what are the factors that make it look like a mountain lion, and what are the factors that make it look like a dog or a bear, you know? So I think luckily I've gotten away from the dog or the bear. This one, at some angles, kind of looks like it could be a dog, but I think I was getting better. This one kind of goes back to a mountain lion a little bit. This part, the snout almost could look like a dog. And I've spent different amounts of times on different ones, but I think for the most part, I'm getting a little bit better. This one still looks kind of like a mountain lion. All right, so we've got the eyes and we've got the mouth, and I'm going to work a little bit on the brow, but I think the profile is getting pretty close. I think I got sort of most of the hard part. I'm going to round these out just a little bit more. And let's look at our model here. The front on. So how are these cheeks? I think we need to work on these actual like jaw cheeks a little bit more. So maybe make these a little bit narrower. Another important plane, so speaking of planes, is there's basically this one that is the top of the nose, but then we also have this one here that goes from the eyes all the way down and turns into the lip cheeks. So that's an important one. And then when we get up here, sometimes, and in some of the felines this is more noticeable, but they have like these brow muscles. And I drew these in more on some of the first ones that I did, but when I look at the photos of the actual Jaguars, I don't always see those sort of brow muscles, so I haven't really been emphasizing those as much. And if you look at the photos, the front-on photos of the Jaguars, you don't really see this very much. And the side view, you don't. In the side view, sometimes you see it. So like if you look at this one, oops, sorry, I bumped the camera. How did I bump the camera? So on the side view, you do see that there's in profile, this does change. So that is significant. From front on, it looks like it's completely flat, but from the side, you definitely do notice the brows. And look at the three-dimensionality of that puffy eyelid. You definitely see the puffy eyelid there. That's that shape. Remember that we were drawing it in sort of 2 dimensions, but we can also sort of mold it a little bit with 3 dimensions. The puffy eyelids. That's important. The puffy eyelids, the teardrop, the tear line going down into the lip cheeks line, this weird smile into a frown. Those are all super important, and I've learned a lot more about those from doing these sculptures, and I think that's really going to inform my drawing when I have to draw these in 10 seconds or whatever it is in the field. Okay, now I'm going to start doing some finishing touches, because remember, I still need to try, I want to try to make 2 of these tonight. Drink break. Okay, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the ears, which are sort of secondary. As you can see, I didn't even put ears on that one. Does the chin stand out? Wait, actually, let me like work on these cheeks just a teeny bit more to sort of match this. I think here you can really see this angle. If I put my sculpture at that angle. My cheeks, there is not, look at this line right here. If you look at this line right here, oh, there's the mosquito. Oh no, it's a, I missed it. Okay, if you follow this line right here, you'll notice that on mine, at the same, if I put it at the same angle, if I put it at the same angle, we've got some questions coming in from the audience. If I put it at the same angle, its cheeks, it doesn't have as extreme of a line. Look how extreme that line is. I almost want to trace over that with a Sharpie. I think I need to make my cheeks a little bit bigger. And one way I can do that, and this is one of the cool things about sculpture and clay that you can't always do with two-dimensional like drawing and stuff, is you can add material on like this. So I'm actually gonna, it's kind of like what they do with those celebrities these days. I feel like the celebrities are getting these really crazy plastic surgery things done on their faces, and it's like, wow, you just like inflated your cheeks or whatever. So look at how we can kind of do, we can pretend like we're the plastic surgeon right now for the Kardashians and just like add a little bit more, puff it up a little bit here, you know. I swear it'll make them look like they're younger again, but instead they start turning into these weird like grotesque I don't know, like caricatures. You know, puff up the lips a little bit, puff up the cheeks. So I'm just gonna sort of hopefully fade that in. And now it's one of the Kardashians. Okay, so now I think that's getting a little bit closer to, see that line that the photo has there. When I put it at that similar angle, it now has like a little bit closer. And I think that's pretty good. Like overall, this is sort of what I'm going for. I'm not going for perfection. I'm going for quantity. So if I can get 2 of these done every day, I think that it's going to really help me when I have to draw them from real life. All right, so Sandra's complaining about having to now do this. You can find Sculpey. I would recommend doing it with Sculpey because it won't dry. Like I can reuse all of these. So for those of you who are just joining in, I've done I don't know, like almost 20 of these already, and you can reuse the clay since it doesn't harden. This is modeling clay as opposed to like natural clay, and it will not dry. I'm not sure. I will probably bake some of them, but my main goal is using the sculpture as a learning tool. And so in terms of like learning from it, the part about like making it is actually the biggest learning. And I need to make sure these ears are not too closely spaced, because if you look on the actual photo, look how far apart the ears are. They're spread out from the eyes. So you can see there's a line right there, and that's an important plane as well. So I'm actually going to marcate that line from the edge of the eye, the innermost edge of the eye, to the innermost edge of the ear. I might bake some of them and like paint them or something, but the main goal for me is not creating art, but to practice understanding and learning about the anatomy of the jaguar head in advance of this trip, because I'm going to have a limited amount of time to see jaguars in the wild, and I want to be able to draw them quickly and hopefully somewhat accurately when I'm there in the field. So for me, doing the actual making of these heads, as many as I can, is going, I think in my opinion, is going to have a bigger benefit than like creating, like if I just made one of these, if I just made one sculpture and tried to make it as good as possible and then bake it and then be like, put it up on the wall or give it to my grandma and tell her to put it on the wall, that wouldn't be that much about learning. It would be more about creating art. And creating art is great, but I think that one of the things that we forget is that drawing, and in this case sculpting, can be learning tools, and that's what I'm trying to use it as. I'm trying to use sculpting as a learning tool. I'm not trying to make a piece of art that is going to go on a pedestal. I'm trying to learn about jaguar facial anatomy so that I can draw them when I'm in the field, and this is one of the ways that I think I can learn about that. So I'm done with that one. I'm just going to leave it alone. So there you can see what the first one looks like. To change things up, I'm going to switch the camera angle for people who are just joining in. Let's see if people on Instagram have commented anything or any questions. It looks like we've had a bunch of different people join in. Thanks for joining in. No comments over there yet. People on Instagram usually have a really short attention span, so it's understandable. That's what happens to me when I'm on Instagram. I rarely go on lives for a long period of time. But let's see if we can. We're going to switch the camera angle over here again, give you sort of a bigger, for anyone who's just joining in, give you a little bit of a different angle here. You can see the other ones that I'm working on. You can see some of my drawings down below that I've been working on. Here's an aluminum foil one. I'm probably not going to put clay on this, but there's wire underneath. So you can get this wire. This wire right here is designed to be used for sculpture it's called an armature. So you basically make like almost like a skeleton out of this wire. It's very soft. It's sort of counterintuitive to work with, but you basically make like a skeleton with this. Then you wrap aluminum foil around it, and then you put clay around that. And this is one that I put clay. This is more modeling clay, so I put modeling clay around it. It's not super easy, but this is, and it takes a lot of clay even if you use the aluminum foil. But this is clay that I got at a garage sale type thing. So this person had clay for like 10 years at their house before they got rid of it. And so that's what you don't want, is you don't want to buy art supplies and then have them sitting around your house for 10 years and then you end up getting rid of it at a reduced price for someone who's actually gonna use it. So the art supplies, they don't work unless you use them. All right, so now I'm gonna make another head. I'm gonna make a small one so it'll go faster, hopefully. I think talking is probably making it go slower than usual. So let's get this. This is super sculpey. That brown or terracotta colored stuff is not super sculpey. Super sculpey, I think, is slightly different. I'll post a link later, but oh my gosh, you have to be 14 years old to use this. Look at that. 14 plus. You have to be 14 years old to use super sculpey. So that's a sign of a good art supply. It either means you can get high off of it or it's really hard to use. So don't give this to anyone under 14, unless I'm misreading that, but I don't know what else that would. 14 plus, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because you could make genitalia out of this, and that would be very wrong. So I'm not going to make any genitalia right now, even though jaguar genitalia is something that I'm probably going to have to deal with. So I might have to add some jaguar genitalia onto this one. I noticed the number of people watching the live just went down by like 4 people. So I think people were offended by the remark about jaguar genitalia. So I'm sorry. Not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, so this is going to be the head, and then I'll add the snout afterwards. I'm definitely getting better at the proportions. I think earlier I was often making the muzzle way too big and the face too big and the cranium too small, which is a really common thing. The human brain focuses so much on the face, and you can see here that the head is probably too small. The proportions on this one are probably not right. Here you can see I might have overcorrected. Look how long the cranium is on that one. This still might be too small for the cranium, unless I make a really small head. I could make one like this size. Maybe I'll try to make one like that size. So I wanted to announce that if you want to get a copy of the illustrations that I do in the field. I'm going to be creating a publication called Drawn to Jaguars. It's going to be basically in a magazine type format, really nicely printed with original drawings and watercolors done in the field, plus notes and written descriptions of what I'm seeing, what it's like at night, what it's like in the Pantanal, other organisms. There can be, for example, giant anteaters. This is one of the best places in the world to see giant anteaters is in the Brazilian Pantanal. There's all kinds of crazy birds. There's all kinds of crazy reptiles. The jaguars, in fact, are hunting. This is the place, if you've ever seen a video of jaguars hunting crocodilians, I think they're usually spectacled caimans or black caimans, then that video was probably filmed in the Pantanal. So there's obviously cool reptiles. There can be anacondas. There can be all kinds of stuff. So if you want to have a little booklet with richly illustrated drawings and descriptions of my experience there and of all of the wildlife, then you can get one of those, because I'm going to be self-publishing a little like magazine type book called Drawn to Jaguars with all of my best illustrations from the trip. And the best way for you to get one is by joining my Patreon. So people who are at and I have more information about it on my Patreon, but basically starting from $5 a month, you can become a Patreon member and support the work that I do for like creating shows like this and all the other videos that I do. But there's also other perks, and one of them is that I'm going to be creating these publications, and I have created them in the past as well, like my Tanzania trip. I made a publication for that. So my Patreon members will be the first people to get that. So if that's something that's interesting to you, go over to patreon.com/MarleyPiper and check it out. It's one of the main ways that I make money. I don't make very much money that way, but trying to support the work that I do and make a meager living. All right, so I think I got some of the basic proportions here on this one. I'm going to start modeling in more of the details. Genitalia. Oh, yes, it's true. It is true. There is part of it where, especially when you're drawing it, it does look like a sack, basically. So or a heart, But this shape right here, when in a lot of the sort of drawing tutorials for drawing cat faces, they have the shape and they're like, okay, next draw this shape. And you're like, wait, what? And it's like, yes, that does look like genitalia. Hopefully I won't get demonetized for this, but the snout shape there before you put the nose on or whatever, it does look like it could be yes, it reminds me of, that's one of the things that we do in nature journaling. So I think my head might be the cranium part might be a little bit small, but I'm going to go with it. Let me see if I can get this light a little bit better here. Ooh, yeah. So also another thing that's going to be, this publication, the Jaguar Journals, is going to have stuff, in Portuguese. It's going to have stuff describing what's going on. It's going to have funny stuff in there. So this is a one-of-a-kind publication that I'm going to make. And basically, if you sign up for an annual subscription on my Patreon, you will be able to get one of those. So I'm going to try to make this one fast, so maybe I'll talk a little bit less. Let's see if I can just push in these eye spots a little bit here. Get the eyes, that's super important. The eyes, this plane coming down to the muzzle. I'll go ahead and put in sort of the nose shape. A little bit big, but that's fine. Down here a little bit. And I think now would be a good time to switch to the close-up video, actually. So director of cinematography is making an executive decision here to bring it in close. That's probably too much of a down line, but that's okay. Go ahead and shape the mandible part a little bit right now. And actually, I'm going to put that over there. Ah! Knocking over the faces. Okay, let's go for it. And now I'm going to get the eyes in. Some people say, you know, do the eyes like very last, but the eyes actually help as sort of a landmark to put in other, they can help as a landmark to put in other facial features. And I need this tear line, that line that comes down where the sort of tear ducts would be and comes around. Comes around. And then get that very important sort of lip indentation there from a brown to small. And I think my ratio here, my head is a little bit, the cranium part is a little bit flat. It's almost looking reptilian, a little bit flat that way. And the ratio between how long the snout is and the size of the cranium, I think, is a little bit off. So that's not great. I'll try to put that line in there, see if that helps at all. And then maybe I need to add a little bit to the cheeks to get that sort of Kim Kardashian puffy cheek look going on. See that? Yeah, there's definitely, if you put it like that, it's definitely not enough cheeks. So let's just grab a little bit of extra and put that on the cheeks. And let's see if we can finish this one faster than we finished the last one. Once you have created a 3D model, what you could do, sort of the Fernando Gomez Baptista style, would be to create like one good one. You know, I'm not sure if he does iterations. Like what I'm doing here with a bunch is sort of iterative learning, because I realized that it seemed to me that I could learn a lot by doing multiple sculptures. But if you just create one good one, then you can use that and control the light and then practice drawing from that. And so ideally, that's what I would do after this stage. I might have put on too much. The plastic surgeon got a little crazy there and added a little bit too much filler on this Kardashian cheeks. Maybe I'll get more views on YouTube if I like mention the Kardashians a lot, because apparently people are more interested in them than in like the Amazon rainforest and the loss of tropical biodiversity and things like that. Oh, hi, Amy. Thanks for joining in. Ooh, cheetahs. Yes, they have a very characteristic face shape as well. I think I had one of these sculptures that came out for some reason unintentionally looking more like a cheetah than a jaguar. So it can be really cool to practice the different felines side by side and start figuring out like, okay, what makes it look like a mountain lion? What makes it look like a cheetah? So I think I'm still dealing with this. It's too flattened this way, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Maybe I'll add a teeny bit more material there. You could spin forever on one head, but I do think that doing this sort of iterative way where you create a lot, I think that psychologically this can be really helpful, because you're like, okay, I'm making progress, and you just keep going. Or maybe just for my like ADD or something, it helps. But if you just do one and keep fudging with that one and trying to make it better, I think you don't always learn as much as if you do a bunch. Yeah, so I definitely have some issues with how big the head is that way. But I think I'm going to start abandoning this one and moving on here pretty soon, so that I can do a little bit of drawing. So yeah, this is actually not one of my best ones, but I think it's okay. This eye got all sort of messed up, so I didn't put in the details. Let's do the puffy eyelids part. That's a very important part of the look. So at least get that shape in there, sort of know that it's there. And then maybe the brow a little bit and tweak the muzzle down slightly. Okay, I think overall, like the details aren't, the surface is not great, but the proportions are pretty good, and some of the major planes are correct. So yeah, cheetah drawing practice. I have had the privilege of drawing cheetahs from real life in the field in the wild, and it was like, wow, okay, quick, you have these cheetahs in front of you. It was like three brothers for some reason, and I was like, okay, you gotta draw these quick. I had been doing I did a lot of practice before going to Tanzania, um, but yeah, when it's time, I didn't do any of these three-dimensional. So you don't want this to look too Mickey Mouse. You can see that if the ear is similar to the eyes, if the ears are big, the ratio of ear size, eye size, and nose and mouth size to the size of the head is what makes something look like a baby, or it makes it look cute. So for an adult mammal, you don't want it to look cute, especially for a Jaguar, and so you want to make sure you get that sort of ratio right. And as we saw before, there's sort of a line that goes from the top of the head here to the, and from the edge of the eye to the top edge of the ear. There's that line there, and then there's a line here in the middle. And then this is a plane, so this should all be sort of flat going from the eye to the ear. And then this should be sort of flat here. Above the jaw, but below that, I think this is the, like, can't remember, it's like the masseter muscle. There's a muscle on the top of the head that's goes down through here and is connected to the jaw and is for chewing. So these bulges here on the top of the head are part of the chewing muscles, but there's like a flat spot here that kind of goes towards the ear. So those are some of the major planes, and depending on how the light is hitting something, those will create shadows. So like depending on how the light hits this, you can see those planes, or you should be able to. Like look at how right now this is all dark right here, but it also kind of comes down there a little bit. Look at this one. So you can see, look at how the light, there's a highlight right here on this plane. And so by creating the three-dimensional model, you can start practicing drawing that and getting, like, figuring out how to make the lights and the darks. So if I hold it right there, you can see that plane, and that's a really important plane on the face of the Jaguar. Another really important one is this one right here, which I think I messed it up a little bit. It should probably get like narrower up here. But this is the plane that goes from the nose, and it's sort of like the sinuses all the way back this way. Let me adjust it slightly. So even just all this playing around, I think it starts training your brain to understand these, unconsciously understand these shapes. And then when it's time to draw these in the field, your brain is more ready for it. So it's one of those things that you can do to prepare, similar to donning the leggings of the animal that you want to draw. You can also do, I'm going to do 2 sculptures a day of this animal that I want to get better at drawing, especially if the three-dimensional aspect is something you've realized is a weakness for you. And what I realized in the past in drawing felines is that I have trouble understanding the three-dimensionality of their faces and getting that right in my drawings. And so, yes, I have practiced, drawing them over and over again and looking at different, people's explanations and methodologies for drawing their faces. But I feel like practicing this right here with doing this many three-dimensional models. Let me write the date. Um, so this was 27/7. Today is the 30th, so I missed a few days. And I'm using international dating technique, or I'm trying to. So it's the 30th of July, and I did 2. So that's part of sort of the motivating thing is like, look, I keep adding more. Da-da. So the ears are really far back. Yeah. So if you look at this, the ears are quite far back. They're way back here, and look at how far out to the side they are. So they're quite a ways back. Here you can see sort of a side view photo, but they are quite a ways back. And so I did my 2 for today. Now I'm going to do a little bit of drawing. So for those of you just showing up, let me show you the scene, the situation here a little bit. I've got all of these that I've been doing. I was trying to do 2 every day. You can see how my first ones are pretty bad, and they do get quite a bit better, I think, as it goes. And that first day I did 3. I have done one of these. I just built it up on the armature. I haven't gone into the details yet. This has a bunch of aluminum foil underneath, so I'm a little bit worried about getting into the sculpting part. Here you can see some of the materials. This is the armature wire for sculpture. It's some very soft wire. I can post links to all this stuff later. And then this is just regular aluminum foil to bulk it up a little bit. This is also helpful if you actually want to bake it, which I'm probably not going to do. All right, let's get into some drawing here and see if we can do some drawing using one of these as a model and practicing drawing some of those shapes and getting, I think this one right here might be a pretty good model. We can put some dramatic light on it and practice drawing some of these basic shapes. So let me get the camera set up down here. Here's a book that I'm going to read. I haven't gotten into it yet, but it sounds good. It'll be in my newsletter. I'm doing book recommendations in my monthly, more or less monthly newsletter. So if it's good, I'll put it in that next newsletter. All right, so let me get the camera set up here so you can see what I'm up to. All right, so I might need a chair, and I might need some coconut water. And I'm going to try to clean some of this stuff off my hands. So this is probably all, this isn't natural clay. Modeling clay is all petroleum based, so it's probably not something you want to be putting in your mouth or anything like that. Yeah, the first one definitely looks like a I'll take that as a compliment, Amy. The first one is definitely look like that one definitely looks like a gorilla. The very first one, I think, is very gorilla-like, and I think that's one of the things about practicing these different kinds of heads or doing comparative anatomy is you start figuring out, okay, what is it really that makes a dog face look like a dog face, a cat face look like a cat face, and a bear face look like a bear face, So it's things that, like, the crazy part is that the human brain makes those distinctions unconsciously without consciously being able to explain, like, oh yeah, well, the bear, it's a longer snout but a wider face combined with bigger ears, or the dog is a longer snout with like a narrower face and bigger ears, and the cat is like a more sloped face with a smaller snout in relation and more widespread eyes. Or I'm just making stuff up, but like, you don't consciously know those things, but the human brain will recognize them. And so the job of the artist is to train ourselves to be able to figure out how to actually control that, because if you make a drawing and you're like, it's going to be a cat, and then it comes out looking like a bear, you could just tell everybody it's supposed to be a bear, but that's sort of cheating. Okay. So cat lady should have an advantage. Yes. Technically, I guess. But the thing is a lot of times we could be surrounded by things and look at them all the time, but it doesn't mean we're able to draw them better. Okay, where am I going to set the camera up this time? I actually think I'll set it up here. Okay, is that a good location? Actually, that's not a good location. You can't really see. I wish I could, for some reason when I'm doing the streaming, I can't do the 0.5 and the wide angle on the camera. Otherwise, this would be a lot easier. Okay, let me get my chair. All right, now what I'm hopefully going to do is I'm going to show you how the three-dimensional models that we've been making of the heads can then be used as a tool for practicing drawing from. This is like really next level if you think about it, because normally we would think, okay, I'm going to practice drawing from the real life thing, or I'm going to practice drawing from photos of the real life thing. But in this case, we're making a three-dimensional model of the real life thing, or based from photos of the real life thing, and then we're using those three-dimensional models to draw from. So that's kind of that's several levels of removal. So you have to be kind of careful when you're doing something like that. But at the same time, I think it can create a situation where we can learn a lot about specific aspects of how the face looks of that animal. And if Fernando Gomez Bautista, the illustrator from National Geographic, does it, then I think that's probably a good sign that it works. Okay, I'm not going to be able to see my computer here, so let me move that as well to make sure I'm not showing you the wrong thing here. Let's see, I'll put it there. Okay, let's see if anyone on Instagram is commenting. No comments so far on Instagram, but there's 0 people watching now, so that might be why. Okay, so I'm going to get my drawing tool here, and I need more light. Oh, yeah, okay. So what I want is dramatic light, and unfortunately right now it looks like I have a couple different angles of light, and I have some like, I should probably do a dark background. There we go. And then I want to control the light more, so let's get this light closer here. Jaguar attack. Okay. So just like if you ever done any figure drawing classes, it's really helpful. Some figure drawing groups, they don't really do a good job of this, but ideally they should control the light. And if they control the light, then they can make some really dramatic shadows. And dramatic shadows are always better because they're sort of simpler and easier to draw, and they will give you more information about the shape. So I'm going to put this here to block some of the ambient light that's coming in. And what you'll notice is I'm going to start getting a lot more interesting shadows on this. The camera's a little bit far away, so let me see if I can bring it a little bit closer. Okay, so what we should be able to do here is we should be able to control the light a little bit and see how these shapes look with different light, and start to understand how we can draw these shapes quickly in the field. So for some reason on the camera it's not showing up that great, but for me it looks pretty good actually. There we go. Look at that. That shows up more for the camera. So for example, if we've got the Jaguar like this, look at those. Look at how you can see those planes now. Do you see that? This is why you create the three-dimensional models. You might also learn like what's good about your model and what can be improved. But look at how right now that is a very useful. Unfortunately, the way I see it is very different from the way the camera sees it. So what I'm going to be drawing is going to be different from what you're seeing. So I'm actually going to turn it. Oh man, I was looking at it through the camera. So okay, so I'm going to start doing some sketches at this angle here. This might not be a very common angle that I'm going to see the Jaguars at. So maybe I'll try something different. Here, let's just do that for right now. Don't forget, you probably have some sacrificial pancakes. So first drawing, might not be the greatest. I'm just going to go ahead and start with another one, a small one. Let's see if I can shrink it. I got the front plane there, a little bit of the eye on that side, the ear coming up, and another ear coming up. And what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to draw fast and bold. That is what I'm going to be going for in the field. So, and then let's see, I can just kind of shade this in like that. So already I think that this 3D model can already teach me a lot that a photo wouldn't be able to do. And there's a lot that I can practice with this 3D model that I wouldn't be able to do with just a photo. This is not my most recent model. This one is from the 20th. But I just sort of chose it because it looked good, and yeah, it looked good, and I didn't want to like overthink it. So from this angle, you can really see these sort of shadows created by the ears, and they're basically triangles. And then you can really see the how the eyes are these dark spots. The whole front of the muzzle is dark. So you can practice just learning how to get these values in. There is a dark thing coming up there, which goes to that tear duct spot, remember? And then there's dark coming up along the sort of jaw or the cheek there. So you can sort of start to learn kind of what these basic dark shapes are. And if you can practice those can be really helpful in the field. So here, just to show you what some of these sketches look like, just getting started here, but can see a few. I don't know if I chose the absolute best, but I didn't want to like overthink it. Okay, now I'm gonna try to get a couple from this angle. I think all of these things, depending on your personality type, you have to be careful about like overthinking stuff, and it's really easy to just have the paralysis by analysis and then not actually do anything at all. So doing something consistently is better than like not doing anything because you're trying to figure out like the way to do it like perfectly. And I want to get sort of comfortable with the imperfection too, because when I'm in a canoe with a bunch of photographers and there's like a live jaguar there, I want to be able to like not worry too much and just draw it. And Sandra's going to be there too, so that's going to be very distracting. One interesting thing that I see here, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but depending on the angle, is you can get this a little bit of a highlight that comes in where the like lip is. So let me see if I can, there, sort of at this angle. You can see the darkness goes up there around the nose, but then the light part comes forward. And so there's like a little bit of a highlight there. This is actually the first time I'm drawing from the models that I've created. So far, I've mostly just been making models and then drawing from photographs, but I'm already learning a lot. So this is really cool. And so I should point out, if you're just tuning in, that I'm going to be making a publication based on this. And if you sign up for an annual membership on my Patreon, you can get one of the publications plus all the other benefits of being a Patreon member and supporting the show and all of that. But you can get in the mail one of these with sketches done and out. I mean, is there any other book out there in the entire world that you can buy that has sketches of jaguars done in the field? I don't think there is. If there is, let me know, with descriptions and of all the other animals and the wildlife and landscape paintings. And I have done landscape paintings, and Pantanal is next to Amazonia. It isn't Amazonia proper, but this isn't my first rodeo nature journaling on a canoe or capybaras. There could be capybaras. So here's an example of some past pages. These are all done in the field. So imagine something like this, but with jaguar drawings, tropical landscape paintings of the Pantanal. Here's this was actually a stingray, an Amazonian stingray that I saw on my last trip to Ecuador. So imagine something like this, but with jaguar sketches and drawings mixed in, and all curated into like a nice self-published, glossy sort of magazine type thing with all kinds of crazy tropical vegetation and some jaguars. That's what I'm talking about. So that's what Drawn to Jaguars is going to be. I'll probably have some of these like preliminary sketches, and depending on what level you sign up on, maybe some of these 3D models, when I bake them and paint them, will be available as well, and some original sketches for some levels also. All right, so I got that angle. I think I'm gonna have to quit pretty soon here. I put in my hours, I think, for the day, and I haven't eaten dinner yet, but I wanted to give you an idea of what I'm up to. I've got a couple more videos coming down the pipeline, and they're going to be coming out first for Patreon members. I am flying to Brazil on Saturday, but I won't be going to the Pantanal for the Jaguar trip for about 10 more days after that. So you still have some time. There will be some new videos coming out, some new content about some other un-Jaguar related topics, but yeah, stay tuned. I also have like a newsletter coming out talking about the Jaguar project. So I'm kind of talking about the Jaguar project. It's going to be a bit of a Jaguar deep dive here for a couple of weeks, but there is going to be some other stuff. I made a video about nature journaling on toned paper. Ooh, this is not coming out good, so I'm going to make a frown face there. Something about the muzzle and this that line there is not. Oof, yeah, that looks like a cartoon. Don't like that. Maybe just getting in some darks. Sometimes analyzing what doesn't work is useful. This line is wrong. So let's see. Let me try to do that eye again. So the eye should be flat and then going into a tear mark and then going into the muzzle. Tricky one. Maybe I'm just running out of energy here. Maybe it's a tough angle. Maybe the model is not that great at this angle as well. Okay, everybody. All right, I think that's it. I'm running out of energy here. Oops. Let me switch cameras. All right, thanks for joining in on the live. Thanks for joining in on the live. We did a bunch. We talked about sculpting and the benefits of sculpting as part of training for drawing. And we did a little bit of drawing as well. The Jaguar journals are going to be coming soon. So check out my Patreon if you want to get all the most up-to-date information as well as your opportunity to get a published version of this in your mailbox. Some of my patrons got original sketches in the mail already. That is true. And so if you want original sketches of Jaguars done in the field and to see this publication, it's going to be coming out for Patreon members first. Look at all these Jaguar heads that I've made already. I'm getting prepared. It's going to be awesome. I'm nervous. I'm excited. Join me for the journey. I will be making some YouTube videos, but I'm going to be focusing most of my energy this time into making a book. So they're going to be hand-drawn drawings. There's going to be notes. There's going to be essays about the ecology of the Pantanal. If it's something that you don't know about, there's going to be information about that. It's going to be a very interesting publication, very unorthodox, very unique. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to join now for a year-long membership on my Patreon, then you can be one of the first people to get this publication. That's partly how I'm going to fund the printing of it, because it's going to be on quality paper. I don't know if I have one of my previous ones here lying around. I don't think I do, but I have done ones for my Tanzania trips, and it's going to be similar to that, and it's going to be on really nice paper. So check it out. Check out the Patreon. You can also support just all the videos that I make and everything like that for as little as $5 a month. Thanks for tuning in live, and thanks for everybody watching this at home. Thanks for the folks on Instagram. Oh, look, a couple people, there's a couple comments on the Instagram, so thanks for the people joining in on there. Thanks for everyone on Facebook and on YouTube. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Nature Journal Show and more about Drawn to Jaguars coming soon. In just a couple weeks, I'm going to be there with the actual Jaguars. All right, bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Look how realistic this Jaguar is. Bye.